For decades, free trade has been the backbone of North America's automotive industry, driving its success and growth. However, trade tensions are now rising, pushing Canada to explore new opportunities in Europe. But why is this shift happening now? And more importantly, what does it mean for the future of cars? And for you? If this power shift continues, the consequences could be enormous. Car prices might skyrocket, factories could shut down, and major automakers like Tesla, General Motors, and Ford could face an unprecedented crisis. The automotive industry is standing on the edge of a major economic shift, one that could change the way vehicles are built, sold, and priced across North America. Imagine waking up one day to find that your dream car suddenly costs an extra $10,000. Sounds shocking, right? But this scenario might not be as far off as it seems. The US and Canada have long operated as deeply connected economic partners, especially in the automotive sector. Automakers on both sides of the border rely on each other for materials, labor, and production efficiencies. In fact, vehicles are rarely built in just one country. Parts cross the border multiple times before a car even reaches the showroom floor. As tensions rise and trade agreements shift, the entire automotive landscape could change dramatically. The question now is, are we ready for this transformation? This long-standing relationship between the US and Canada has worked smoothly until now. A sudden and dramatic shift in trade policies is sending shockwaves through the automotive industry, and the consequences could be severe. The United States has introduced heavy tariffs on Canadian goods, threatening the cost structures that automakers have depended on for years. However, Canada is not backing down. Ottawa's response is sharp, calculated, and capable of reshaping the auto market in ways few could have predicted. Supply chains that once functioned like well-oiled machines are now under threat, creating a ripple effect that could be devastating for both automakers and consumers. The North American car market is teetering on the edge of chaos, and buyers will be the ones left paying the price. But amid all this turbulence, one company is taking a particularly hard hit: Tesla. Canada's counterpunch, Tesla takes a direct blow. What if Tesla suddenly became a luxury brand overnight? That's exactly what could happen. In a bold move, Canada is considering a 100% tariff on Tesla vehicles in response to the US's trade policies. For Canadian buyers, this would be an economic gut punch, effectively doubling the cost of popular models like the Tesla Model 3 and Model Y. A car that once sold for $50,000 could suddenly jump to $100,000, pricing many consumers out of the market entirely. But the impact extends far beyond just Canadian Tesla buyers. Tesla isn't just another car brand in Canada. It is deeply embedded in the nation's supply chain. This means that any disruption in trade doesn't just affect buyers. It also affects workers, suppliers, and the entire industry. As tensions escalate, the future of the automotive market remains uncertain, and the coming months could determine the fate of North America's auto industry as we know it. Tesla's deep reliance on Canadian source materials, such as nickel, lithium, and aluminum, puts the company in a precarious position. These elements are critical for battery production, and if Canada retaliates by restricting access, Tesla will be forced to seek alternatives. This could drive up costs, slow down production, and ultimately lead to higher electric vehicle prices in the US as well. Wall Street is watching closely. Tesla's stock price is notoriously reactive to trade disputes, and even the slightest rumor of Canadian restrictions could send investors into a frenzy. For Tesla, this isn't just a regulatory headache. It's a direct threat to its long-term growth. However, Tesla isn't the only automaker feeling the pressure. The entire North American auto industry is now standing on unstable ground, facing a crisis that could disrupt production and send shockwaves through the market. The supply chain nightmare: why every automaker is in trouble. Most people don't realize just how much of their car is built in Canada until that supply is suddenly cut off. The modern auto industry relies on a just-in-time JIT manufacturing system, a process designed to minimize waste and maximize efficiency by producing only what is needed at precisely the right moment. In theory, this keeps costs low and production running smoothly. But in practice, it makes automakers highly vulnerable to disruptions, especially when key components become unavailable without warning. For major brands like Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis, the impact could be catastrophic. Parts that would normally flow seamlessly between US and Canadian factories could face delays, shortages, or skyrocketing costs. This could lead to assembly line shutdowns, job losses, and price hikes for consumers. The North American auto industry has functioned like a well-oiled machine for decades. But now, that machine is at risk of grinding to a halt. Canadian-made parts are the backbone of North American auto manufacturing. Everything from wiring harnesses and steel frames to lithium-ion batteries and aluminum panels flows across the border daily, keeping production lines running smoothly. However, even a single missing component can bring an entire assembly line to a standstill, leading to costly shutdowns, delays, and workforce reductions. Unlike other industries, automakers can't simply swap out parts overnight. The specialized machinery, expertise, and raw materials required for production are concentrated in Canadian plants. Without them, vehicle production in the U.S. could come to a grinding halt. This isn't just a logistical headache. It's a full-blown financial crisis. Assembly lines, designed to operate with precision and efficiency, are now at risk of slowing down indefinitely. Automakers are scrambling to find alternative suppliers, but many are already experiencing shortages. If these supply chain bottlenecks worsen, companies will have no choice but to make difficult decisions, reduce output, raise prices, or pass the costs on to consumers. The ripple effect will be felt across dealerships, factories, and households as car prices rise, production stalls, and jobs hang in the balance. Why is the U.S. losing control? For years, the United States dictated trade terms, leveraging its economic power to shape policies that favored domestic manufacturers. But this time, the balance of power has shifted. Canada is calling the shots. Unlike past disputes where Canada played a largely defensive role, this time, it holds the upper hand. With access to critical materials, a growing list of global trade partners, and a dominant position in the North American supply chain, Ottawa is in a position of strength. One key reason for this newfound leverage is Canada's resource wealth. As one of the world's leading producers of nickel, lithium, and aluminum, materials essential for modern vehicle manufacturing, Canada has something the U.S. simply cannot afford to lose. Without these resources, American automakers will struggle to meet demand, especially as the push toward electric vehicles accelerates. If the U.S. cannot secure a steady supply of these crucial materials, the entire North American automotive industry could face an upheaval unlike anything seen before. Canada is also strengthening its economic ties with Europe, creating a viable alternative to U.S.-based trade. While the United States imposes tariffs, European automakers are striking new deals, potentially leaving American brands at a significant disadvantage. The political standoff is escalating, with neither side willing to blink first. Washington is betting that its pressure campaign will force Canada to back down, but Ottawa has shown no signs of retreating. Instead, Canada's actions suggest it is prepared to shift its economic focus away from the U.S. entirely if the trade conflict intensifies. If that happens, the consequences for American automakers could be devastating. The auto industry is heading into uncharted territory. Supply chain disruptions, rising costs, and economic instability all point to a future where vehicles are more expensive, production is more complicated, and trade relations are more fragile than ever before. This is no longer just a trade dispute. It has become a battle for economic dominance, and the outcome will shape the North American auto industry for years to come. U.S. car prices could surge, and that's just the beginning. Buying a new car is already expensive. But what if the price suddenly jumped by $10,000 or more? That's not just a theoretical concern. It's a very real possibility, and it could happen sooner than expected. The moment tariffs are introduced, automakers' costs skyrocket. Everything from raw materials to essential components becomes more expensive, and when costs go up, car manufacturers don't absorb them. They pass them directly to the buyer. This means sticker prices at dealerships could see an unprecedented surge. Most people don't realize how many components in their vehicles come from Canada. The steel in the frame, the aluminum in the body, and even the lithium and electric vehicle batteries all make their way across the border before a car is assembled. If these materials suddenly face tariffs, manufacturers could be forced to pay double or even triple the usual cost. With production already expensive, that increase will be factored directly into the final price of the vehicle. For dealerships, the pressure is just as intense. Automakers set pricing structures based on supply chain costs, and dealerships have no choice but to follow suit. They aren't just selling cars, they're operating within an industry that already runs on thin profit margins. The moment vehicle acquisition costs rise, so do prices on the lot. Even used cars won't offer much relief. With new car prices surging, more buyers will turn to pre-owned options, driving demand through the roof. When demand outpaces supply, prices climb across the board, making affordability a serious concern for the average buyer. This ripple effect will hit consumers at every level, making cars, both new and used, more expensive than ever. What was once an accessible purchase could soon become a luxury, leaving many Americans wondering if they can afford to buy a vehicle at all. The consequences of this trade dispute are clear. Owning a car will become significantly more expensive. Monthly payments will rise, auto loans will become more burdensome, and leasing options will be less attractive. For millions of people, the dream of owning a new vehicle could slip out of reach. And just when it seems like things couldn't get worse, the crisis extends beyond cars. It's only the beginning of a much bigger problem. The auto industry in freefall, job losses, and factory closures. What happens when factories can't get the parts they need? They shut down, and workers pay the price. The North American auto industry was built on efficiency, relying on a just-in-time manufacturing system where parts arrive exactly when needed to avoid excess inventory. This system works flawlessly until it doesn't. The moment tariffs disrupt the supply chain, production lines stall, factories slow down, and thousands of workers are sent home without a paycheck. Cities like Detroit, Michigan, and Toledo, Ohio, could face devastating job losses. These aren't just places where cars are built. Auto manufacturing is the backbone of entire communities. When assembly plants struggle, it's not just auto workers who suffer. The impact ripples outward, affecting suppliers, transportation companies, and even local businesses, restaurants, shops, and service providers that rely on factory workers to stay open. Beyond layoffs, companies will be forced to make tough decisions. Some automakers may shift production to other countries to escape rising costs, taking jobs with them. Others might implement hiring freezes or even halt wage increases for those lucky enough to keep their positions. What started as a trade dispute could spiral into a full-blown economic crisis, reshaping the North American auto industry for years to come. The ripple effect, a crisis beyond the auto industry. The economic devastation wouldn't be confined to the auto sector. It would spread across industries, affecting countless workers who have no direct connection to car manufacturing. This isn't just about numbers on a corporate balance sheet. It's about real people, real families, and real lives being turned upside down. The worst part? This isn't a short-term crisis. Once factories shut down and workers are laid off, reopening them isn't as simple as flipping a switch. The damage lingers, and recovery takes years. Communities built around manufacturing will struggle to find stability. Businesses will close, and workers will be forced to seek employment in industries that may not have room for them. And as the working class suffers, the effects of this crisis reach even higher, straight to the stock market, where billions of dollars hang in the balance. Wall Street's meltdown. Could this trigger a stock market crash? Tesla's stock is unpredictable even in the best of times. But what happens when Canada threatens its supply chain? The stock market thrives on stability, and this trade war introduces one of the biggest economic uncertainties in recent history. Investors panic when they see industries at risk, and automakers are at the center of this financial storm. The moment production slows, profits drop. And when profits drop, stock prices follow. General Motors, Ford, and Tesla have billions at stake, and investors know it. Even the slightest hint of disruption can send stock values plummeting. If a full-scale tariff war with Canada erupts, these companies won't just be dealing with increased costs. They'll be battling a collapse in investor confidence. And in the stock market, confidence is everything. But the problem doesn't stop at automakers. The auto industry is deeply intertwined with a broader financial system. Banks that provide auto loans, hedge funds that invest in manufacturing, and even retirement accounts that hold stock in major car companies could all take a hit. If automaker stocks crash, it could send shockwaves through the financial markets, triggering a chain reaction of economic instability that affects everyone, from Wall Street traders to the average investor saving for retirement. What started as a trade dispute could spiral into an economic downturn, proving once again that when one industry suffers, the entire economy feels the pain. The bigger picture, how this trade war affects everything you buy. Think this is just about cars? Think again. The consequences of this economic battle stretch far beyond the automotive industry, potentially raising the price of almost everything, from home appliances to smartphones and even groceries. Canada is a major supplier of essential materials like steel, aluminum, and lithium, all of which play a critical role in various industries. If these materials become more expensive due to tariffs, the industries that rely on them will see costs rise, leading to price hikes across the board. Take electronics, for example. The metals used in smartphones, laptops, and home appliances are often sourced from Canada. If tariffs make those materials harder to obtain, manufacturers will face higher production costs, and they won't absorb those costs. They'll pass them on to consumers. That means everything from your next iPhone to your refrigerator could become significantly more expensive. The construction industry will also feel the impact. Steel is a fundamental material in building homes, office buildings, and infrastructure. If tariffs drive up steel prices, construction costs will rise, leading to more expensive homes and increased rent prices, putting even more financial strain on families already struggling with the cost of living. Even food prices could be affected. The transportation industry depends on vehicles built with Canadian materials. If production costs increase, so will the cost of shipping goods. That means groceries, household essentials, and everyday products could all see price increases. This is no longer just about automakers and trade policies. It's about the cost of living, economic stability, and the financial well-being of millions. A trade war with Canada won't just make cars more expensive. It will make life more expensive for everyone. The rise of European automakers, Canada's new best friend. For decades, American automakers like Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis have dominated the Canadian market. But that dominance could be coming to an abrupt end. As trade tensions push Canada away from the United States, an unexpected winner is emerging: European car manufacturers. Companies like Volkswagen, BMW, and Mercedes-Benz are seizing the opportunity, turning Canada into a key battleground in the global automotive race. Unlike American automakers, European brands benefit from existing trade agreements with Canada, allowing them to bypass the tariffs that could cripple U.S. manufacturers. This means European electric vehicles could flood the Canadian market, offering competitive pricing and advanced technology without the financial burden of heavy import duties. For Canadian consumers, the choice becomes clear. Why pay thousands more for an American-built car when a German or Swedish alternative is not only cheaper, but often comes with cutting-edge design and engineering? This shift doesn't just affect pricing. European automakers are aggressively expanding their presence in Canada, forming partnerships with Canadian battery suppliers and investing in local research and development. Meanwhile, American automakers are scrambling to deal with supply chain disruptions. European manufacturers, however, have planned for contingencies, ensuring they remain competitive in a rapidly changing global market. As a result, dealerships across Canada are already seeing a shift in consumer interest. Where showroom floors were once dominated by American brands, they are now starting to resemble European auto expos. With Canada welcoming this shift, the real question is no longer whether American automakers will lose ground, but rather how much of the market they will surrender before they take action to counter this growing threat. The political showdown: who blinks first? Neither the United States nor Canada wants to appear weak. The longer this trade war drags on, the more entrenched both sides become, making negotiations increasingly difficult. For Washington, backing down would mean losing control over economic policy, a move that could be seen as a sign of weakness both domestically and internationally. The U.S. has long dictated trade terms in North America, and any concession could set a precedent that challenges its influence in future disputes. For Ottawa, standing firm is about more than just trade, it's about sovereignty. Canada has spent decades building a strong position in the global supply chain, particularly in battery materials and auto manufacturing. Caving to U.S. pressure would not only hurt its economy, but could also embolden future attempts at economic coercion. With neither side willing to blink, the standoff is escalating. The consequences are becoming more severe, and businesses are being forced to adapt in real time. Automakers are scrambling for alternative suppliers, prices are rising, and investors are growing anxious. The question now is, how long can this game of economic brinkmanship continue before the fallout becomes too great to ignore? The ongoing trade standoff between the United States and Canada has reached a critical point, with neither side willing to back down. Both nations hold significant leverage. While the U.S. remains Canada's largest trading partner, a prolonged dispute could hurt both economies. At the same time, Canada controls crucial resources that American automakers desperately need. Behind closed doors, negotiations are happening, but neither government wants to be seen as making the first move. Political leaders are carefully weighing the risks of escalation versus compromise, knowing that any wrong step could have long-term consequences. Meanwhile, businesses and consumers find themselves caught in the middle. Automakers are delaying production decisions, uncertain about the future. Dealerships are struggling with unpredictable price fluctuations, and everyday buyers are left wondering if now is the right time to purchase a vehicle or if they should wait for stability to return. Trade wars are never resolved overnight. They are drawn-out battles that test economic endurance and political strategy. Eventually, one side will have to yield. The only question is who will blink first and at what cost. Amid this turmoil, Mexico is quietly observing and evaluating its next move. For decades, it has played a crucial but understated role in North American auto manufacturing, seamlessly integrating into the supply chain without drawing much attention. However, as tensions between the U.S. and Canada escalate, Mexico may see an opportunity to rethink its strategy. If Canada is considering pivoting towards Europe, what's stopping Mexico from exploring a similar path? Unlike Canada, which has long depended on the U.S. as its primary trading partner, Mexico has historically maintained a delicate balance, deeply embedded in the North American supply chain while remaining mindful of Washington's policies. Now, as the automotive industry faces uncertainty, Mexico could decide that it no longer wants to be caught in the crossfire. Trade agreements have long tied the three nations together, ensuring a seamless flow of materials and parts across borders. But the future of that relationship now hangs in the balance.